This formal meeting of the Board of Education for September 16th, 2015 is called to order. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to everyone present and to our television viewers. Any item that will be voted on this evening has been posted as required by state law. The meeting is being televised live. Please check the board website for replay times. The meeting is also being streamed live on our PPS TV service website. Director Knowles will be arriving late, and Director Constam is absent this evening. We are going to start with student testimony. Ms. Huson, are there any students signed up to testify?
We have two.
Okay.
Donzel Slater and Tyshawn Fauntleroy.
I agree.
Right there. And go ahead and state your name.
My name is Tyshawn Fauntleroy. I'm Donzel Slater.
Great. And just go ahead and speak one at a time, and the green light will go on, and when the red light goes on, that's when you should stop. Wrap it up.
So red light on or off?
Go on the green, stop on the red. Don't get caught in the mister in between.
Hey, I might get confused by that.
Yeah.
All right. So my name is Tyshawn, and I'm from the IM Academy. And right now, it's a successful group throughout Roosevelt. It's like with black young African Americans trying to be successful in life. And right now, we have a lot of us working at the convention center and also having internships at the DA's office. And that's what I did for the past 2 years. And it's been a really great help on my resume and to get me prepared for the future.
Thank you.
I'm Donzel Slater. I'm an alumni of the IM Academy. I'm one of the first members of the group. When we first started, it was a few years back. I'm a sophomore now at Portland State University, so this is during my junior year, so about 4 years ago. We had a broad outlook on what we kind of wanted to do, and at the end, it was kind of a reward for maybe the opportunity of jobs to happen for us, and it was really just a hands-on look at real-life situations and how to deal with yourself as a young man being African American in America today, and just knowing how to conduct yourself and dealing with actual situations outside of the school and things like that. So as far as resumes, scholarships, college applications, things like that, they really stood as my support system. So I wouldn't be here without IM Academy.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Susan, are there other?
No other students.
Okay. Carol, I think we'll just go back to you. Is that all right? Yeah. Okay. Superintendent's report. Superintendent Smith, would you like to present your report?
I would. At the last board meeting, you got some highlights of the first day of school, but I wanted to just call out a celebration of the first day of kindergarten for our first official full-day kindergarten. And we've got a short video from Maplewood Elementary showing our first day of kindergarten.
Today is Trinity's first day of kindergarten. We are getting ready. We just got our hair done and our shoes on, and we're getting ready to go to school.
She needs to remember to have fun, listen to the teacher, and do her work. This is my school.
Today is September 1st. It was the first day with kindergartners, and we had 72 students arrive for their first time for kindergarten.
Are you ready? Yes.
So some of the things that they'll learn today is just routine. The first part of kindergarten is all about routine and meeting new friends. And then we have first-time parents. It's their oldest child dropping off, and that gets very emotional. We had tears.
1, 2, kindergarten. Good.
But it got real once I actually walked into the school, so kind of fighting it back a little bit.
She a little nervous, looks like.
I want all of the students to know that they're known and that they're loved here, and that whether it's a staff person, an older student, that they have somebody they can go to and talk to. I want them to feel like this is their school and they're welcome.
So we've also been hearing that we've had great turnouts at our back-to-school parent nights. This one is some photos at Madison of the back-to-school night, but we've had sold-out crowds, I think, across the district of people showing up to just learn about what school's going to be for their students this year. Is Mana Schreiber here? Mana, will you just stand up? I just want to grant high school math teacher Mana Schreiber was honored by President Obama in July. She won the National Science Foundation's Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching. And she was recognized for innovative approach to helping underrepresented students improve in mathematics. So thank you so much for being here tonight so we could acknowledge you, and what an exciting honor to get. That's really incredible. So you are one of 108 teachers from across the country. Come on up if you don't mind, and just say a few words about the honor.
So every 2 years.
And right here at the
the
microphone, right
Yeah.
there, yeah. Just go ahead and have a seat and face us, and yeah. There you go.
So every 2 years, there's a presidential award for one math and one science teacher from every state. So I was selected for Oregon for this 2-year period. And it was an amazing honor, and meeting the President of the United States I didn't expect to be so blown away by the experience, but it really was remarkable, and he is a very remarkable man. They actually had us there for a week, and we were able to learn all about the policies that are going on and what their goals are for the next 2 years, and meet the cabinet, and that was just really very, very inspiring.
That's great. And they also give you a grant too, is that right? Do they give you a grant award?
Yes, they do. Yeah, you get $10,000.
Awesome.
Yes.
That's great. Congratulations.
Thank
and
you
thank
very
you for
much.
coming to let us recognize you as
Oh,
well.
thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Another award that we're excited to acknowledge tonight was Creston K-8 School, and Creston PTA received the National PTA School of Excellence Award for building effective family-school partnerships that support student success and continuous school improvement. I'm going to ask Conrad Hurdle, who's the principal at Creston, and Lisa Kensel, who's the president of the Portland Council PTA, to come on up in front and tell us a little bit about the award. This is a really big deal award, and we're really excited to have one of our schools receive it this year. Yeah, right here. Yeah, and would you just tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing?
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm very excited to have this award at Creston. It takes a partnership at Creston. We truly believe that parents are our partners. And this wouldn't have happened without Lisa Kensel, our PTA president. Over the last 5 years, she has done many wonderful things to lay a really rich foundation. At Creston, we really believe it takes the parents and the teachers working together to form a healthy environment where students can thrive each and every day. And I can say it's really a big honor to know that we're actually doing things right. You know, many times in education, we're always planning to do things right, but it's good to know, you know what, we're already doing it, and we're being recognized for the work that we're doing and bringing families in and outreaching to families. Because what we know is that when families feel like they're welcome, kids will thrive. Thank you.
Thanks, Conrad. Lisa.
Thanks for having us here tonight. I just want to mention about our award that giving PTA a space in the building has made this possible, and I'd like to thank Mr. Hurdle for allowing PTA to have a space in the building. He's given us an office space, and he's very supportive of all the things that we're doing with the community. And that's how we're able to engage each and every family and further student success at Creston.
Wonderful. You guys, congratulations on the award.
Thank
It's really
you.
awesome. I also wanted to just thank all of the folks who showed up last Saturday for our Reconnection door knocking campaign. This is the 5th year that we have gone out and done door-to-door invitations for students who have left school to invite them to come on back to school. Last year, our staff engaged 1,047 students who had left school, and many of those are still enrolled and actually came back and have since graduated. So this has been a really effective way of going door to door, and we have volunteers. In fact, Mike Rosen, I believe, participated this year.
Yeah.
Do you want to say any words about?
Yeah, it was a really good experience. I went out with Greg Wallach, who I found out later was a co-volleyball parent on my daughter's volleyball team. But I think the thing that was so striking for me was that you can really see the challenges that these kids face just coming to their homes and meeting their family members and seeing the way they live. And so, but it was really rewarding, I think, that you definitely saw that there are some families, regardless of their economic circumstances, that are interested in getting their kids back in school, whether it was a parent or an older brother or a grandparent. So it's a really a great program, and I thank you guys for doing it.
And thank you for being one of the volunteers, Mike. And thank you to the rest of the folks who showed up on Saturday to participate in the campaign. We're excited also this year to launch Mobile First, which will begin to shift our family and staff communications to mobile devices. We know that 90% of American adults have a cell phone, and a vast majority of families have told us they want their news to come to them electronically. So this is going to be a multi-year effort. The first phase of implementation is a new communication tool called School Messenger that allows our principals to send all their email and auto dialer calls from the same platform. It will also feature text messages for alert notifications. As you can see from this poster, be the first to know about snow days, say yes to 68453, and you'll get text messages on your phone. So you'll see these posters all over the place. And they are really saying, if you want us to communicate with you directly about snow days, you'll get this on you'll get a text on your cell phone. So sign yourself up to be the first to know about our snow days. And actually, our numbers of the school secretaries that I have been seeing on my visits just at the beginning of the school year have been really excited about the use of this new tool. They're learning how to use it and are really excited about doing it. So sign yourself up to get our inclement weather alerts. I also want to call out the Madison Senators football team, who disbanded last year because they did not have enough players coming out for the team, and this year they're making a comeback. So PBS Athletic Director Marshall Haskins hired Coach Don Johnson from the Evergreen School District in Vancouver, and 72 players went out for the team this year and made a strong showing at their first game against South Eugene. So we're going to show you a short video of the Madison football comeback.
So we need 100% effort. You guys were the worst team in the state last year. We have a lot to prove.
Jeremiah Thompson, I'm the senior. I played running back. Last year it was really hard. We didn't have a lot of bodies out. Everybody kept getting hurt. And, I mean, even though we only had like 14 people in the team, it would have been fun to compete.
We're starting from the bottom. Everybody in the world doesn't respect us. And so we're right where we want to be right now.
Jeremy Matheny, quarterback. Oh, it's exciting. The energy's through the roof. The practices are always so hyped up. The goal for the team this year is to win the PIL.
So it's something I've done before. This isn't new to me. It's winning cures everything, and I have a feeling that we have a chance to be good.
My name is Warrior Noel. I'll be playing slide back and cornerback this year, and my goal for our team this year is to be PIL champions.
The atmosphere is already changing. There's kids coming out that want to be involved that never were before.
I have a very strong love for football, and I just can't see myself not playing football. It motivates me to be a better person, do better in life.
Yep. When you have kids that come out like this that never won, it's a lot more exciting because you know they're dedicated. There's kids that win all the time, you know. These kids have never won and they're still here.
1, 2, 3.
Cheers! Let's go, baby.
We have had a number of our sports teams from the community who have supported our third grade reading initiative, and we reported on numbers of these visits last year. This year, the Portland Thorns have already visited Scott, a K-8 school, to visit and talk about third grade reading, but also about girls' involvement in sports. And I think we have a video on this one as well. Just photos, okay, it says video on my thing, good. And then finally, I want to end with a really wonderful project from Roseway Heights K-8. When we did our successful school survey last year, one of the things that was a significant concern was bullying. And we've had a number of student-led initiatives that are anti-bullying initiatives, and we're really trying to feature and highlight where students have taken leadership in talking to their classmates about not bullying. So this is the project going on at Roseway Heights. And I'm just going to underscore, I think our students are taking the lead and trying to really set a tone for kindness and civil discourse for all of us in the community. So I'm just going to say we're going to keep bringing you back featured efforts on behalf of students as they are modeling that for the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Carol. Student representative report?
Yes.
Katie, would you like to go?
Yes, I would. As you all know, the school year is finally upon us, and it's been off to a great start. As student representative, I'm the voice of students all around PPS. I am running Superintendent Student Advisory Committee, or better known as SuperSAC. A couple of students from each high school will be meeting with me to report what's going on, and more importantly, what's not working at their schools so we can help make a positive change. At the moment, we only have one member of SuperSAC, me. Together with my advisors, Shay James, Jocelyn Biguy, and John Isaacs, we are seeking out new members. But most importantly, it comes down to the students themselves to volunteer their time to help make a difference within PPS. Together, we will decide the goals of SuperSAC. I want to make it one of my personal goals this year to try and visit as many schools as I can. This summer, I visited Jason Lee Elementary School's Summer Sun program, as well as visiting Glencoe Elementary School. Glencoe was one of the schools to get new windows this summer, and they turned out great. Going from single pane to double pane windows will increase comfort to learning environments in our schools. On Friday, I will be taking the Max down to Franklin High School at the Marshall campus, thanks to our wonderful TriMet bus passes. Some of Kimberly Amador's leadership students will be showing me around so I can see how well students are transitioning to the new Franklin location. I would love to look around Roosevelt later this year and the other schools that were renovated too. I think it's important to not only hear, but to see how these changes are impacting our students. Finally, I would like to thank the members of the school board for dedicating your time for putting students first. It takes a lot of perseverance to do what you do, and I think I speak for everyone here as I say we appreciate the time and effort you give us on and off screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Public comment. Susan, do we have anybody signed up for public comment?
Yes, we have 6. And our first 2 speakers, Ismail Pekin and Bob Clark.
Oh, okay. Superintendent and board chair and board members, pleasure to be here. Willamette Week reported this week that the district is preparing a bond measure.
Sir, we state your name for the record.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, Bob Clark, Southeast Portland.
Thank you.
And so the Willamette Week reported that you're preparing a new bond measure for school building construction. I request that the district have at least one public meeting dedicated to discussing this bond measure, particularly the property tax rate, and accept public testimony at this meeting. This would be in addition to your polling that you'll do on how much or what property taxes rate is affordable. Most folks don't dispute the value of rebuilding our schools. The key questions are affordability, also the term of the construction bond that you'll let out also affects the property tax rate in that the longer you have a term, the lower the property tax rate can be. And we saw this in the 2012 bond measure, and David Wynn, I hope I pronounced that name right, the financial officer prepared a matrix where you had property tax rate against bond term. And so that was a very helpful matrix to have. And affordability is the key question. Over the last 5 years, total property taxes for the average homeowner in the district have increased nearly 5% a year and about 4% per year over the last 10 years. At the same time, Bureau of Economic Analysis data shows Portland area median family incomes have increased only about 1.5% to 2% per year last 5 and 10 years. Additionally, for retirees like myself, it appears that there will be no cost of living adjustment for Social Security checks and other pension checks this coming calendar year. So this is some of the background on affordability, and that's just what the first bond measure in 2011, I was part of a group that fought against its passage because we thought it was a little bit too steep for the initial rate impact. But the second one, I didn't fight too much about. I actually supported it, and that one. So we went through public discussion on that, but I don't think you need to go through that whole series. But maybe just one meeting or maybe 2 to just help gather some more opinions instead of just strictly polling. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Smith. Thank you very much for having me today. My name is Ismail Pekin, and I'm a parent of a Woodstock kindergarten student. And I'm here with a group of fellow concerned Woodstock parents to work with you toward achieving our shared goals of small class sizes, a focus on kindergarten, and a real effort to achieve equity in the kindergarten staffing process. I wanted to talk to you tonight about a few challenges that we face in Woodstock. Our kindergarten right now is 32 students. 32 students in a kindergarten. This is far above the number that the board has looked to as a goal in some of your policy documents. It's, to my knowledge, one of the largest, if not the largest, kindergartens in Portland Public, certainly at the high end. And I wanted to take a little of your time to talk to you about some possible solutions and express why we think it's so important that we split our class and use the available resources in our building to make a second kindergarten class. First of all, as you all well know, class size is a major determinant of student success. It feeds into nearly every indicia of success that we track. We must have a small class in order to do what we need to do to help our students succeed. It's difficult for teachers to be supported in a class that size. It's difficult for teachers to differentiate instruction in a class that size when you have 32 kindergartners at different levels running around. You also have the issue that all of the typical problems with class size are exacerbated at the kindergarten level. They're learning to be learners at this point, and they need the foundation and the support now to pay dividends later. So we think that it's critical to go ahead and fully support kindergarten, especially after all the wonderful work you did in providing all of us with full-day kindergarten. Why go to the trouble to institute this program and then stop just shy of the goal line? Let's go ahead and take the last step, get it done, and make this the success that we know it can be. We have serious access problems in a class of that size. It's crowded. An aide isn't going to do it. An aide is going to increase the noise, the chaos. It's not going to provide our students with the resources that they need. So we'd ask for an additional FTE. Last year we had 2 neighborhood kindergarten classes. We have the space to do it. We think that it should be done again. And finally, we have a bit of an equity issue too, because we are a neighborhood school with an immersion program in the same building. Now, in other schools, you may have a large class size and be able to move some of those students onto the other classes, but we have only one class without a hard enrollment cap. As I understand it, the Mandarin program has a hard enrollment cap in both of its kindergarten classes. And as you know, there's now a prohibition on in-district transfer, so we can't transfer to another neighborhood school. You can't move the kids to the Mandarin program. We can't transfer our kids out of the program into another school. What are we to do? And we ask you to consider this as well. So finally, thank you for the time. I appreciate it. We all appreciate it.
Thank you for coming.
Could I just ask Bob Clark a quick question? Yes. Yeah, no, I know. So you had mentioned that you wanted a meeting to get feedback beyond the feedback that we would get during the polling, and you mentioned that I think that you're a retiree and that you weren't going to get Social Security COLAs.
Right.
So what is the particular issue that you want to be discussed? The impact of the tax rate on people, retirees, people with fixed incomes?
Well, not just retirees, some people.
Right.
I mean.
Right, people on fixed incomes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Our next 2 speakers, Karanja Cruz and Maria Da Silva.
Actually, can I make a quick comment about the Woodstock situation? Just that has been addressed over the course of the day today.
Good. Thank you. Yeah. Hi.
Good evening. Are we ready now?
Yeah, go ahead.
Awesome.
State your name for the
Yes,
record.
My name is Karanja Cruz. I'm a recent resigned educator from PBS, taught over 10 years. I'm here first and foremost as a parent of 2 children in a priority school who do not have teachers who reflect how they look, and also a curriculum that doesn't reflect who they are. I organized a conference for educators called the Teaching with Purpose Conference, which is a call to culturally relevant practice and pedagogy. It's a call to culturally relevant practice and pedagogy. I've organized this conference for the last 6 years, In the last 2 years, we had over 300 educators who have attended this conference. PBS has been a strong supporter of the conference through Lorenzo's Post Office, the Equity Office, who has sponsored and provides scholarships for educators to attend the conference. This year, they have offered 100 scholarships for educators to attend the conference this year. I'm here to personally invite you to attend as school board members and as the superintendent to gain a greater knowledge of what culturally relevant practice and pedagogy is. This conference is a great opportunity for you to learn that information, and I'm here to extend my invite, personal invite to you all to attend, and hopefully I can see you guys there. I have flyers for you guys and information. I also will send you an email. So if you have any questions, and we can proceed that way.
Thank you very much. Where and when is it?
It's going to be at Park Rose Middle School. It's during our statewide in-service day, October 9th and 10th.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Maria D. Silva, and can you turn on the mic? And I'm not as prepared as I want to. My son, who is a special needs, he's a little tiny thing at Beach Elementary School. He's a kindergartner. He just had a septoplastic surgery on his nose, and Safeway doesn't have the hydrocodone and the Tylenol medicine. They're ordering the ingredients, so it's been a really tough week for me, and I have not been able to go to work. Nonetheless, I'm member of the education committee of Don't Shoot, and we have been able to meet over the summer just to share our concerns with Steve Buell, also with the PAT president, I think her name is Wendeline, and several other people in the community. So I'll just read briefly a little bit of the things that we are advocating, and again, I'm not as prepared as I would like to be, and I always speak from the heart. This time I'm gonna be reading, and hopefully one of our other parents of colors will come and join me and continue reading what we're advocating for. Don't Shoot requests that the board protect our most valuable students by providing oversight on equity programs and spending. This is not an attack on any one contractor, person, or a group. We need a strong oversight of all programs and spending because we're not getting results we need for our kids. We're asking PPS to audit all funding and outcomes of each equity department and equity programs, conferences, trips, speakers, contracts, trainings, seminars, etc. You know what I'm talking about. This should also include the $1.5 million in sanctions by ODE and how it was spent for disproportionate discipline on Black special education students. Millions of dollars have been spent over the past several years on equity, yet the results are abysmal. Students are suffering from race discrimination. Sabine Office of Civil Rights finding ODE sanctions, the RHS STEM or the Roosevelt High School that I've spoke to you before are examples. Lawsuits are being filed. Problems are being ignored. We're seeing negative, I'm sorry for this part, PPS equity department and PPS equity spending, negative spending. These negative outcomes have been widely reported by the media but largely ignored by PPS leadership. We need a new board and a new opportunity to make things right for our kids. Don't Shoot PDS request that the board direct Superintendent Smith to freeze all further outside spending and any increase internal spending by PPS until the audit is complete, until the audit is complete and the board has had an opportunity to review and set parameters and policies for future equity spending. This is a consistent with the board of action of July 28 of 2015 regarding the compensation audit for PPS administrator pay increase. Don't Shoot PDS requests an audit for all alternative programs that receive public funds for the students pushed out of PPS in Multnomah County, related programs that receive the funds related to contracts in partnership with PPS specific to students of colors. Don't Shoot PDS expresses its support of the Portland Association.
Can you wrap it up?
of teachers' presentations to the PPS board regarding disproportionate disciplines and the safety problems PPS leadership has created by failure to fund and provide support for Carol Smith's stated goal of reducing exclusionary discipline by 50%. A PPS principal came out to us confidentially and said principals are being directed to achieve the superintendent's equity goal but are not given any guidance, support, or tools to achieve these goals. They are told that they will be evaluated on the data. They are not told they cannot provide goals. They are told that they cannot provide. They are told that they cannot provide goals, special education services to Black kids. They cannot suspend or expel Black kids no matter what. Achieving a number regardless of the harm it causes the students and teachers is not equitable. Achieving a number of regardless, that is to harm it causes students and teachers is not equitable or safe. We need to change something about safe way so my kid can get the hydrocodone and the Tylenol, and we need to do something to change PPS, and the board needs to do something. Thank you so much, and I apologize for going a little bit over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last two speakers, Teresa Raitfer and Tamberly Tabor.
Welcome.
Thank you, Commission Board. My name is Teresa Rayford, for the record. I'm a member of this community. I was born here in Portland in 1970. I have 11 brothers and sisters. I have too many nieces and nephews to name. But on September 26th of 2010, my nephew, Andre Dupree Payton, was killed on Northwest 2nd and Cooch. He was a student here in Portland Public Schools. He had been in specialized culturally competent programming since he was 7 years old, and he had graduated the same year that he was murdered. He had a gun in his hand. Most of his friends that went through the same educational systems that he went through had already been killed. Several of them have died, even kids that came out to the vigils and the funerals and all of the community events that we had at Grant High School and at SCI and at other places within our community. They're dead. They're still dying. These children aren't getting to 21 years old, and they're coming through this system. This is a system that I would think, as a person that pays taxes, lives in a world where we say we are free, we have liberty and justice for all, that our education system would be competent enough to help those that have the biggest disadvantages, those that come from parents like myself who grew up in a foster care system that failed us, those whose parents fell into a criminal system that is perpetrated by the poverty and the decisions that are being made by the leadership that is not connected to the people that it's supposed to serve. I would think that an education system would be more considerate and respectful of the people that come to it without leadership and request support, respect, and consideration. An audit is not something that is supposed to be used as a tool or a vehicle to disarm or hurt any person. An audit is a system process that needs to be looked at, that needs to be reviewed, and that needs to be made effective and efficient for outcomes that support successful lives, not children that die. We have children that are dying in our community. It will be 5 years on September 26th of 2010. It will be 5 years this year that my nephew died. I came home to visit. I worked for a CPA in the city of Dallas where we have 2.5 million people in the county where I worked, where I lived, where my kids went to school. I didn't know anybody that died. I've been home for 5 years. I don't go to funerals anymore. I don't go to vigils anymore. But everybody that's in my community, they go. You guys benefit off of our children dying. We don't want those benefits anymore. We want our children to live. We want whatever you put into this school system, we want to be the ones who decide what is right for our children. I'm not going to say a cuss word, but you know what? Cultural competency is having the ability to care. It's having the ability to do the works that's necessary. It's having the intellect to understand that gatekeepers or any appointed leaders do not have the ability to speak for me or anybody else, and especially not those people whose children are dead. Andre Dupree Payton was my nephew. I don't have any ulterior motive. I'm not trying to knock my community down. I ain't racist against black people, but I am standing for these children in our community because they don't have leaders. We are the leaders. If you think that somebody is the director, the leader, the manager, the supervisor of the black people in this community, come to us. If you're not knocking on our doors and speaking to us directly, you're not talking to anybody that has any kind of opportunity to speak on our behalf, and I promise you that. Numbers don't lie. We are not happy with the numbers that are coming out of this district as it pertains to the successful outcomes for our children. We don't want dead children with graduation. We don't want a diploma in his hand and that to be the picture on their obituaries. We don't want that. And if you don't want it, and if you don't want to fail us anymore, then you will work with us directly, period. That's the end of my testimony.
Thank you.
My name is Brian Chu. Oh, sorry, excuse me. My name is Brian Chu. I'm a parent of two students in PPS. I'm also a teacher, formerly at Lane Middle School, currently at Hosford Middle School. Equity. I mean, I don't know if I need to say any more. I mean, Teresa pretty much nailed every single piece. However, I will speak from this perspective as a person on the front line. Lane Middle School, in jeopardy. Hosford's a great school. I love Hosford. I can, in any classroom that I'm in, it's an honor to be in those classrooms. But when you're on the front line and you're doing the work that of equity of what the district's supposed to, what we say we're going to do, and you see what's actually happening, it's once again we're not doing what we're supposed to do. I don't really know what else to say. I wasn't actually going to speak today. I just wanted to listen. But there's some things that I see on a daily. Being at Hosford Middle School, the interesting thing is that it's a good school, and I actually feel like I'm sort of a vacation, but it just makes the injustices that are happening at Lane Middle School, a Title I school, very, very clear. And yeah, once again, I wasn't prepared to say anything today, but just to know that I see what's on the front line and it's not working.
Thank you very much.
Tom, or Director Curler, I just wanted to clarify something, see if I heard this right. One of the questions that was raised by Maria, or suggestion, was that the audit committee, as part of the salary audit, was freezing salaries. Any additional increases?
Any spending.
What, excuse me?
Any spending.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to clarify this. So my understanding of what we agreed to is we wouldn't agree to any additional salary increases that would occur outside of what was already budgeted. And so that's different than what you're asking for. And so I'm the chair of the audit committee. I just wanted to say that these contracts have already been budgeted for and agreed to by the previous board. And my expectation would be, at least in my vote, that we would honor those, meaning that they will go through. What I would say, though, is I think that one of the things that we're talking about, or need to talk more about, are performance measures, so that we understand the return on the investment for the dollars we're spending. And that's something that the district is talking about more, even in its overall budgeting process. So I just wanted to say that I appreciate the issues that you raise. I think that it's really important that we show the value we're getting out of dollars spent for every expenditure, and that's what we're going to try to move towards in the audit committee.
If you cannot stop those contracts because you want to honor them, I understand that, but any future contracts.
Excuse me. Mike, thank you, and you will be, I know that the audit committee is taking a look at this issue, so I appreciate it. The next is the Enrollment Balancing Values Framework, and Superintendent Smith, would you like to introduce this item?
I would. So tonight we're providing you with a two-part presentation on enrollment balancing. The first is background information and a review of the values framework that was presented by the district-wide Boundary Review Advisory Committee. I know Judy is going to have to tell a story about what happened when she first starts. I know.
right now?
No, I'm just letting you guys get situated, and everybody is focused on your arm. Okay, so the first part is going to be the values framework that was presented by DBRAC that I'm now bringing you forward as a district-wide enrollment balancing values and policy framework for your review. At the end of this portion of the presentation, I'll ask that you weigh in on the framework because it will be coming back to you at the next board meeting as a resolution. The second portion of the presentation will be the preliminary analysis that we've done regarding preferred enrollment ranges and updated classroom counts. So it's two separate parts, separate but related parts. And presenting doing the presentation tonight, we have John Isaacs, who's the Chief of Communications and Public Affairs, Judy Brennan, Director of Enrollment Transfer, and Sarah Singer, the Director of System Planning and Performance. And Judy will tell you the story of her arms when we get to Judy so that we resolve the mystery. So, John, take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Superintendent Smith. Thank you, Chair Curler and the board. We're really pleased to be here tonight to present this to you. Again, John Isaacs, Chief of Communications and Public Affairs. I'm the executive sponsor of the work that we've been doing with the District-Wide Boundary Review Advisory Committee. I'm going to sort of be a guide through our presentation. We all have different things we're doing, so we're going to hand this back and forth as we go through it. But real quickly, I just want to tell you what we're going to do. So first, we're going to share the Enrollment Balancing Values Framework recommendation based on the draft that you've already heard directly from the District-Wide Boundary Review Advisory Committee. And I want to say that with us tonight is Jason Tremblay, who's the chair of DBRAC. There he is. And next to him is Scott Bailey, who's a member of the committee. But Jason is available when we get to discussion and questions, if anyone wants to ask him a question directly of the chair of the committee. So we're going to provide some context and timeline for the district-wide enrollment balancing, just sort of take you from where it started as quickly as we can to this point in time, and then we're going to share findings to date regarding right-sized schools. And so we're going to do a first presentation, and then we're going to pause and answer questions and have a discussion, and then we're going to do the final bullet with the presentation on the right-sized schools analysis. Okay? So I'm going to hand it over to Judy Brennan.
Thanks, and I need help doing that because, good evening, everyone. Unfortunately, I did have a bicycle accident last week, and I had my helmet on, so my head was safe, but I have a broken wrist and a broken elbow, and DBRAC work is tough, but we're all in it together, so I apologize. So I'm just going to share a little bit of the context that brought us to this moment, things that you probably all know, but a quick reminder. Some of the context here is a long decade of declining enrollment and funding that caused a number of very significant changes in our schools. And we're kind of highlighting this period of 2003 to 2013. So in that single decade, closing or consolidating 23 schools, 35 schools experiencing grade reconfiguration, some degree of more or fewer grade levels served at that school during that decade, and then 44 other schools, sometimes these are overlapping, but 44 schools subject to boundary changes just during that decade. So a huge degree of system-wide impact and change was happening, and at the same time, there was a lot of variability in how those different actions were both decided and implemented. So that's a lot to heal from. Fortunately, we've seen a lot of improvements in recent years. So steady enrollment growth. We've been saying 6 straight years of growth, but preliminary numbers look like we should be saying 7 straight years of growth, and we'll have more official numbers coming for you soon. But this is the 7th year of what we believe will be many years of consistent enrollment growth. At the same time, improved funding, not just because we have more students to fund, but we have more funds coming in both at the state level and of course at our local level. In addition, we have a district that's increasingly focused on equity, both in our process and in our outcomes, that invites us to ask questions and pursue answers in a different way than we were doing 10 or so years ago. Despite all of that, we continue to have persistent evidence that we have differential levels of programming in our schools, and that's particularly visible at the middle grades level of our K-8s. All of that, we have this continual healing or continual issue of the challenges and frustrations with our former piecemeal approach to enrollment changes. One of the key contextual pieces that bring us here was a resolution that the school board passed in 2013 at the end of our Jefferson cluster enrollment balancing process. I won't read it all here, but it is what has driven us to spend time looking at some comprehensive change, both in our school boundaries and in our transfer processes, to have better alignment with our racial educational equity policy, strong capture rates, and academic programs across the district. Some key milestones then on that district-wide work just over the past couple of years. Soon after that, a committee called SACIT, Superintendent's Advisory Committee on Enrollment and Transfer, was charged with some district-wide enrollment transfer work. We also commissioned the PSU Center for Public Service to look at our readiness and help us develop a strategy for district-wide boundary review. Just about a year ago, we heard both back from the PSU team on a strategy to proceed, and we heard back from SACIT, who provided a report to the superintendent, which turned into a recommendation and then board action. So it was about a year ago that a different committee was formed. That's that District-Wide Boundary Review Advisory Committee, and your two representatives on that committee are sitting here tonight, Director Knowles, Director Esparza-Brown. Additionally, the Board of Directors approved transfer policy changes in February 2015. So this is the first year that we've seen those changes on the ground. Over the past spring, there was a survey called PPS 2025. Over 4,000 community members responded, and John's actually going to walk you through some of the highlights of that survey. And then that takes us up to this moment, where we have a we have a values framework that was provided by the committee to the superintendent for your discussion tonight, and hopefully moving forward for approval.
Okay, so I'm going to just go through a few highlights of the survey, which you received about a month ago. And you'll see in the report that it's a much more detailed report. I'm not going to go through all of it. I'm just going to go through some of the key findings that the committee's really considering, and that were highlighted by Davis Hibbets, who did the analysis. Real quickly, I want to say that the process for developing the survey was led by Oregon's Kitchen Table, so our partner with Portland State University, who partnered with us in conducting the Successful Schools Climate Survey, and then stuck with us to do the PPS 2025 survey. The process we went through is they had a discussion by the committee where the full DBRAC said this is the information we'd like to get from this survey generally, so it was an open discussion. The Oregon's Kitchen Table then worked with Davis Hibbets to put together a draft survey based on that input. The committee appointed a subcommittee of 4 members who then worked with us and Oregon's Kitchen Table to edit the survey, and it went through heavy edits. And then that survey was what was put into the field for about a month for the community to take. And we are pleased that we had over 4,000 members take it. It was open to the whole community. You can see here who actually ended up taking the survey, how it breaks down. It was mostly parents, which is not surprising, but we did get participation from other parts of the community, which was exciting. The analysis then was done by Davis Hibbets, who was able to weight the results to reflect the demographics of the school district. But this is here's another visual breakdown of who participated in the Successful School, or the PPS 2025 survey. So just some of the key highlights of the survey, which are now being under consideration from the committee. So first of all, when we asked a question about what's most important to you in describing the qualities of a neighborhood school, in the report you'll see a whole series of factors we asked people to consider. Clearly the top 2, by quite a large margin, were small class sizes and access to strong programs. So variety of course options. Those were clearly identified by the community as the top 2 strongest factors that they look for when considering the strength of a neighborhood school. We asked a question about, a preference question about, do you prefer middle school, 6th through 8 middle school, or do you prefer K-8, where the middle grades are with the lower elementary grades? And Pretty strong numbers here. 71% agreed with the statement. It is important for middle grade students to have the opportunity to attend a 6th or 8th grade middle school that offers a wide variety of classes, including electives, even if that means more transitions between schools. So 71% overall of respondents agreed with that statement. And it was very strong across all demographics. The lowest response rate, or the lowest percentage of demographic group choosing that, was the Latino Hispanic respondents, who were at 59%. So that was the lowest percentage, and it was also consistent across our high school clusters. So it had majority support, strong majority support across students, parents, staff, and community members. Respondents were more likely to agree that boundaries should change as infrequently as possible, as they were to agree that boundaries should be changed regularly, though there were differences in demographic groups. So you had a split in the community overall, but in general, this is sort of how it breaks down. So 55% agreed that boundaries should change infrequently, and agreement with that was high among respondents in the Lincoln Cluster, Grant Cluster, current students, and parents. And this concern about frequency was reiterated throughout the survey. 35% agreed with a statement that boundaries should change regularly. This was the highest rates of support here were among people of color, families in Title I schools, and those who are in the Roosevelt and Jefferson cluster. So you can just see some clear differences in the community. You'll notice there was about 10% who said they don't have any preference, so that's where the other 10% went there. No matter where, the specific boundary changes generated concern among everyone. So everyone had concerns. We asked we listed a set of concerns you can see in the report, but about 9 in 10 said they were concerned that boundary changes might require some communities or families to change schools more often than others. That was the top concern. The lowest concern that we think was notable was that respondents were not concerned about the potential changes to property values resulting from boundary changes, which is something that we do hear quite frequently. But that was the lowest. The highest was requiring some communities to change while others may not. And then finally, 55% agreed that boundary changes should happen quickly. 45%, again, about a split, so not much agreement, said they should happen phased in over time. So there's no clear consensus in the community around that question. So now I'm going to turn it back over to Judy to go through the values framework.
Right, so I'm just going to give you a very high-level overview of the framework. The full copy of the draft, I believe, is available to you, and recall again that in July the committee presented a lot of the underpinnings of their work at that time. One thing that I want to highlight is that we charged, the superintendent charged the committee with developing a values framework for district-wide boundary review. But in doing that work, one of their key findings was that this project is about more than boundaries, and so should have a framework that guides all of the different ways you can make enrollment changes. And to honor that, we're now referring to it as our district-wide enrollment balancing values and policy framework. So subtle change right there. Thank you. The guiding values that the committee selected to oversee this project: equity, both in processes and outcomes; access to equitable and effective programs; and facilities that provide the appropriate environment for those effective programs. So those are the three high-level values that the committee wants to make sure are reflected in all of the outcomes of this project. Desired outcomes: stable, strong enrollment at all schools. A very clear statement from the committee about what they hope this achieves. A clear, responsive, and transparent process, not just now when we're in this moment, but a process that we will then continue to use at other times and across the community. And finally, evidence that our racial equity lens has been incorporated throughout the enrollment balancing process. As I mentioned, the committee believes strongly that this values framework should be applied to all of the different levers that can be pulled when you're trying to solve enrollment issues. So that includes transfer adjustments, such as those that the board just approved, making changes to our building capacity, relocating or resizing specialized programs, such as focus options, grade reconfiguration decisions, there's the boundary change piece, but it's nested with all these others plus that of whether we open or close schools. So that's sort of the set of levers that are related to, that make up the enrollment balancing system. And the proposal is that this framework apply to all of these. The committee gave us an additional, really valuable guidance around some other pieces, some somewhat technical, certainly about our community input process, and then what our long-term strategy could be for over time. And so that's in the framework as well. And then finally, I want to point out that at this point, there are no policy changes that are required in order to bring this framework forward. So there isn't anything in the framework that's in conflict with existing PPS policy around boundary changes or enrollment decisions. In the long term, that policy could definitely be sharpened so that the language in it is more consistent with the language in the framework, but there isn't anything that's incompatible right now that would require us to go through a policy change cycle at this time. Now, the committee did make some great suggestions to improve the administrative directive, and we're going to move quickly on that so long as we have the guidance we're seeking on the framework. So then those next steps, discussion tonight, and if all is well, then we would be back. The superintendent would have a resolution for you, and that resolution would both affirm the enrollment balancing values framework and give direction to explore all the levers that I described, not just boundary change, to solve the enrollment issues that we're facing today. Yes. In addition, staff is getting ready to present. We're working really hard to have early October be a time that actual scenarios, maps that show what different configurations and boundary changes could be, would be available for the DBRAC committee and the broader community. So what we're doing right now is developing some of those scenario building blocks, and that's been the topic of a number of our recent DBRAC meetings, and Sarah Singer is going to give you an overview of what DBRAC has learned over the past about 3 meetings. These are some of the topics that we've been covering, and she'll talk about that more in a little bit. I wanted to just briefly describe what I mean when we say scenarios, because this may be a question that you have or that may come up for community members. So when we use the term scenario, we mean it's a specific set of changes designed to improve our current conditions and prepare for future enrollment growth. So it's a plan. Each one of these scenarios will propose some different way to make those changes, and we expect that they'll include some degree of boundary changes, school reconfigurations, and maybe even relocation of special programs somewhere in that same region. When you see scenarios in the future, what you can expect from us is something that's a written narrative that describes what is in this thing, a map so that you can see what's subject to change, and then some analytics, charts and others that describe what this change will do, particularly in relationship to the values framework and the factors for change that are already in policy. So I just wanted, like I said, to take a minute to describe what that package we believe at this point it'll consist of, and we're open to suggestions about it and continue to talk with DBRAC on how to best develop these. Finally, on those evaluation factors, so there are a set of factors that are in existing policy that DBRAC has agreed still remain good things to look at. So when we say factors, we mean like criteria, things that you're going to look at to evaluate whether a scenario is helping you get better or worse at something important to you. So for example, the continuity of feeder patterns, how compact a boundary is, and that could be how far kids have to go, whether they're bused or not, and the numbers of students who change, and what the impact is on the actual student body diversity that could be expected with any set of changes. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to be measuring so that the committee, the broader community, and eventually the superintendent and school board we'll have an idea of what these represent. What I didn't write up here, but I want to make clear as well, is that to the degree possible, we'll also outline implementation plans, as we expect that this such major change may need to be implemented over multiple years.
Okay, so I'm going to finish by just taking us reviewing what the next steps will be. So we expect to go through a detailed community input process in October and November that will take feedback on scenarios that are developed in collaboration with the District-Wide Boundary Review Advisory Committee. So we'll have 2 or more meetings in every quadrant of the city. We're going to we've divided the district into 4 quadrants. Typically, as you know, we'll go do these based on high school cluster. We've decided not to do that because we want people to think outside of the way that we're currently constructed in terms of boundaries, so that's why we're doing it based on 4 regional quadrants. We are planning on unprecedented use of our social media and the other communications technologies that we've developed to try to get as much information out to the community as possible. The way I think of it is we're going to use every single avenue we've developed that we have available to communicate information to the community. We're going to do things that are innovative, that are being used more by public agencies like Twitter and Facebook town hall meetings to answer questions, where we say from this time to this time we'll be available on these on Facebook or on Twitter to answer questions for an hour and just take questions about the process. We're also are committed to updating the Boundary Review website once a week, every Monday, with an updated frequently asked questions and an update on notes on all of the community meetings that we have. And then after that, we'll work to collaborate with the committee to assess and improve the scenarios based on the input from the community that we receive in October and November. So that input will go to the committee and staff, and we'll make it clear at our community meetings that that's who's here to listen to you. Okay. In early December, we expect a recommendation from the committee and staff to the superintendent of 1 to 2 revised scenarios that's incorporated community input. And then in early January, the superintendent will recommend a single plan to the board of directors. And this would include implementation, phasing, timeline, and additional resource needs. So that would mean by mid-February, the board, would hear additional testimony. It will be a process that you agree to go through, that we're prepared to support you on, and presumably that would end on a vote you would take on an enrollment balancing plan. And implementation would begin immediately, and some changes may begin depending on that plan, but we don't know, by 2016, 2017. Others may be phased in. None of that is definite until we go through we finish this process of developing the scenarios, getting feedback from the community, considering that feedback, and making a recommendation. So we're going to pause there, and we want to take questions or hear comments from the board, and then we'll go into the technical presentation by Sarah.
Board? Questions, comments? Steve?
We're looking at K-8 and K-5 in middle school, right? I personally think we should be looking also at K-6 and 7-8 together. K-6, I'd like to see us really take a look at that option also. Personally, I think it's the best educational option that we have in those grades. So that's one thing.
May I clarify that we are not wedded to any particular grade structures at this time? We know that K-5 and middle school is something that we have in the system now. We know it's what people know best, but we are not fully limited to only exploring those. I think so that's where there's room for additional.
But what we did so far was K-5 middle school and K-8.
Yes, that is what we have.
But I'd like to go
And
add that
Steve,
third component.
I'm just going to do a little bit of a pause in here, because part of what we wanted at this moment was really about the values framework and any thoughts about that, and then we're going to dive into a conversation about grade configuration and that you're gonna get a whole bunch of data
Oh,
where
okay.
that
They
question
didn't-
would be part
didn't
two,
mention
part of
the
part two.
grade
Yeah.
configuration. I'll
You
be
guys
glad
may
to
be
wait.
good with the values framework as it is and ready
No.
to leap into part two, but what you just, like what you got from DBRAC, and then the change we've essentially made of having those values apply to all enrollment balancing, not just saying boundaries is the main change we're making, and saying we want the values to apply to all of the levers you would potentially apply to enrollment balancing. But we'll bring you back a resolution at your next meeting that reflects that, unless you have anything you want to weigh in on at this moment. And if you're good with what you've seen and you're ready to go, then we'll go on to part two, which would then get to Steve's grade configuration kind of topic.
Anybody else? I'm personally.
You're good?
Yeah, I mean, it's good, great work by the committee, and
Yep.
totally appreciate it.
I have
Yeah.
questions.
Go ahead, Steve.
About 6 of them. I've got the overview, I'm working on the overview, and I'm on page 0, I guess, because it has no page number, but it's before 1. So it says desired outcomes, strong and stable enrollment in all schools. How is the DBRAC defining strong? I know what stable is, but I'm not sure what strong is. So could somebody from the DBRAC tell us what strong is? What a strong enrollment is? Well,
Yeah, so
you're coming up to
Jason's
me,
gonna
David.
come down. Thank you, Jason.
So, good evening, Chair Curler, members of the board, and Superintendent Smith. Director Beal, to your question on what we're meaning by strong enrollment is what the committee has been wanting to know, and this is what I think the technical analysis will provide, is that what we've been trying to see is what is the necessary enrollment for a school to have so it has enough resources to offer programs, electives, and enrichment and support services so every child in Portland Public Schools can thrive and be successful. So one of the things that I believe the technical analysis will offer is what is the optimal enrollment for that to happen in the given buildings that we have currently in the system. So when we're looking at what the ideal programs are, we're saying what is the necessary enrollment for that to actually be available to every student.
Great. The third part of that is evidence that the racial equity lens has been incorporated. What would be an example of evidence that it's been incorporated?
So for example, one of the things we're taking into consideration is as any proposed boundary change or any enrollment balancing change is implemented into a community, one of the things we want to take a look at, for example, is how many times has that community gone through some kind of a change historically. So one of the things that we're very cautious about is if we're going to offer any kind of change, particularly in the Jefferson cluster, for example, which has experienced multiple changes over years, what we're wanting to be aware of is how do we ensure that the change we're suggesting that the superintendent recommend is actually going to ensure that the schools in that community have healthy enrollment and stable enrollment so that programs can be built and be sustainable for the next 1 to 2 decades. We're going in that intentionally knowing that that hasn't been historically the place, so it's an example of a community-specific issue that we recognize. 2, for example, one of the things that we're very cautious of is given that the diversity of our student body is growing in terms of communities of color and low-income students, we're trying to design a process to ensure that we hear from those communities as well. So, for example, one of the things that we're encouraged about by the proposed community engagement plan that John Isaacs has presented is that John has assured us that we're going to have available translation and interpretation materials and translation services at all public meetings going forward. We're actually doing that with all of our DBRAC meetings. One of the things that staff has provided is that all meetings will have access to language and interpretation services as well as childcare.
So it's in the process itself, not with schools or children or anything?
Right.
Okay. And let me know when you want me to stop and let somebody else go, Tom.
Does anybody else
I
have
got
any other questions?
6 or 7 more.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, on page 1, it says that they should develop and recommend a process for a comprehensive review of the school boundaries. Now, I read through this and looked at it and talked to people. I don't see a process for the review, a process that's laid out here, like you do this, then you do this. Did I miss it?
So I want to point out that there is a process that's described it both in policy and administrative directive.
Okay, but not in this.
And so that's, that provides guidance for the overall process. This document doesn't create a new sequence of events. It provides ways to make those sequence of events better, right? Particularly in terms of equity.
Okay, so it's someplace else. Okay, that helps me. It says the PSU staff noted that enrollment balancing would not be successful without first or simultaneously addressing program equity, school configuration, and enrollment and transfer. So we kind of addressed enrollment and transfer, I guess. The school configuration we're thinking of addressing here down the line, kind of. What about the program equity? I haven't seen, that doesn't seem addressed at all. I mean, it's PSU recommended it, we didn't have to do it, but it just doesn't seem like we addressed program equity, which to me means what programs do you have in your school, and what program does this school have in their school, and are those programs equitable? In other words, for me, in a way, it means similar, I would imagine. So, but that's not addressed here. Are we planning on addressing that, or what are we doing with that?
Well, I would say there is a part of the presentation you're about to see that does show you the connection between enrollment and enrollment ranges that then allow the strongest opportunity for a school to offer a core program and other offerings at the school, and how enrollment, facility, capacity are connected to that. So that's a part of the presentation you're about to.
But it's not really, that's not really program equity in terms of, like, program equity might mean you have 400 tag kids, and so you have tag, and you have 200 kids that are 2 or more grade levels behind in reading, which we have, and so we have available to them the reading help that they need. For me, that's kind of program equity, but maybe I'm being confused. I just don't see it addressed at all here, and I think it's an important thing down the line that we should be addressing someplace, because it's a big issue, and it's just not. It's fine. This is a framework for.
And it's a framework for.
For the values and stuff.
And there are multiple things that impact program equity. This one's really looking at the enrollment link to what the number of students in a school and how that connects to what programs you're able to offer. Because part of what they also, and you're going to see some of that, but the connection between enrollment, the size of our buildings, and what programs are offered. You also have the demographics in a building, and if you also get the equity formula, how does that shift what's available? And the framework that DBRAC put forward also says if you're under-enrolled, what is it we're doing to ensure and supplement so that you're still able to offer the core program. So there are a number of different things that this is really the foundation for. How are we making sure we've got the ingredients to provide an equitable program regardless of where you are in the city? So it's not, those particular factors.
We're going to
and
look
how
at
they
that
impact it.
a little later as we go along.
Yeah, you're going to see more even just in part 2 of the conversation.
And
here.
then number 4 in that same section on page 1, it says the PSU recommended ensuring the provision of a baseline of programs at every school available to every student, which is I'm jumping all over this one because this is exactly what I've been talking about for 3 years now. That we need, and this is what I always call the foundation, but I don't see any of that here. And they tried to suggest about a year ago that we had that, but we don't have
So,
that.
Director Buell,
I don't know.
So we're currently working, and we will be publishing a document that will be available at all public meetings that clearly defines what the core program is at every school and every grade configuration. Really? Yes, that is currently being developed right now.
The core program or the foundation for the school.
Correct. So it's going to define clearly, if you send your child to a K-5, these are the core offerings that you should see at that school.
Minimum.
If you send minimum, exactly. If you send your child to a K-8, these are the core offerings minimum. So it will have that clearly laid out. It will also then, you're going to see information about the target enrollment ranges for a school that then allow each of those schools and those configurations to offer that core program without using the equity formula. So it will then have those enrollment ranges, and it will have the capacity of each building. So someone will be able to look at, okay, core program, this is the enrollment I should see at my school, and here's the capacity of the building that I currently have my child in. That's what we're going to be publishing, and will be available for anyone who attends any public meeting. We'll also make it available on the website, and we're going to email it out to the whole community.
That's wonderful, John.
Okay.
More? I got more. Anybody else want to go? Okay.
Right.
Sorry, I have that marked, but sometimes I have to read the sentence. Why I marked it. We talk about the milestone framework as the part measured for building a school system that supports every student's potential, and I it's on page 3 in the middle. I think it's much broader than that, and as I've said many times, I hate to see us limit ourselves to the milestone stuff, as good as it is. So I'll move on here, on to the next page.
Director Beal, I just want to clarify if I could. So you've got, these are specific statements that are written in the framework?
No, I thought they were in your report, in the report.
In the
It was in the
committee
report, and they said about the milestone
report.
in the report, and I'm
Yeah.
just saying that it's much broader than that.
That's true, that is
It's,
true.
that-
Okay.
that's-
Thank you.
And, because what happens on these reports is people will take it from here and then put it here. And then they'll take it from here and put it here. And so if you start with something that's not right here, it ends up not right here and not right here. That's what I'm concerned about.
And just, Steve, to that point, part of I think what you're looking at, it does acknowledge that it's in part measured by progress on the milestone framework. It doesn't say the only way, but it says in part. So what you're looking at?
I was looking at the middle of
Page 3.
page 3, that middle section that starts debracketed
Six-
knowledge is that. It's looking
And
at the
success
end
of
it.
these efforts are in part measured by progress on the milestone framework. Top priority.
I just thought,
Does
I
that
just
do-
still think it's too narrow, that's all. So everybody knows students should be. I'm pointing out that DBRAC says that at graduation, all students should be positive and productive citizens, and we talked about that at our board, in our retreat, how that there's more to it, and I wanted to note that they're talking about that there's more to it. So when we get to looking at these boundary changes, we shouldn't be forgetting that there's a lot more to school than college and career ready. There's all these other things too that come into play, and I think that's an important thing to look at. We talk about effective programs on page 4 at the very top, effective programs and services to help them reach their potential. And that's outside of the foundation, really, in a way, because now you're talking about the extra things like reading teachers or social workers and those types of things, and I think those are an important part of the enrollment balancing down the end. Number 5, page 5. We're not doing this now at middle school, we're not even close, so hopefully we'll take that into account as we go in those middle grades. That it talks about having, will have access to and opportunities to benefit from equitable and effective academic programs, including enrichment elective offerings. We're a long ways from this in the middle schools and the middle grades, really. We're not, so I'm hoping, yeah, let's go on that. That's something I've not been talking about the last 3 years, but been talking about it since the last 40 years, actually, in Portland Public Schools. So it'd be great to begin to move on that direction. On the top of page 8, it talks about change should protect historically underserved students, and the outcome should be of net benefit to them. Now, I don't know what it means to protect historically underserved students. In the outcome should be of net benefit. I'm all for that, but I'm not sure what that means either. But for instance, does that mean if you put in reading teachers, they would benefit? So the outcome would be that, or how does a boundary change give a better outcome for historically underserved students? I'm not sure how that works.
So first, Director Bill, thank you for that question. One of the things we're trying to be aware of, again, as we're doing boundary changes, is that the only communities that would be potentially impacted are historically underserved communities. We're trying to say up front that as you're going through this process, that those should not be the only communities that experience some kind of change. We're also upfront and where we believe that as changes have happened in the system, whether boundary change, transfer policy changes, grade configuration changes, that a lot of, anecdotally, what we have come to believe is that a lot of these changes happen in historically underserved communities who've gone through years and decades of trauma. So what we're saying in our framework up front is that throughout this process, that the only communities that, what I'm basically trying to say is those should not be the only communities that experience some kind of change. And if those particular communities experience some kind of change, that there has to be some level of commitment where the change that we're recommending is actually going to bring real relief and chances for opportunities for kids of color in historically underserved communities where they haven't been provided historically. So if you're going to make a change, actually make a change with a long-term scope and potential benefit to them. That's what we're saying.
The last part, the first part deals with, of your answer here, deals with the same kind of thing where I was confused before about, you're talking about schools with underserved kids, if it's been closed in that neighborhood, it shouldn't, I mean, just stupid example, but that's what you're talking about. But then the last part of your sentence sounds like you're talking about specific children, and am I confused that this doesn't talk about specific children throughout this, but are we always talking about schools? Because the language sounds more like specific children than schools. And
I would say, to be frank with you, Director Beal, we're talking about both. One of the things that we're trying to be very cautious of is if any particular school is subject to a boundary change, say, for example, a school that is high poverty or a Title I school. One of the things that we're cautious of is if the demographics of that school change and the result is that school potentially loses its Title I funding, what's going to be the potential impact of a school to that community, and how will the quality of service stay the same or be improved by that potential change in demographics? Additionally, one of the things that we know I particularly recognize from my work on Sackett is one of the things that the district has told us that they're trying to accommodate as part of this process is ensuring that every building has set-aside classrooms for students that are receiving some form of special education services. So one of the things in particular, we're taking into account services for special education students, and how does the room set aside for those students in particular phase in terms of making sure that those students have some level of stability, because not in a number of cases historically, they're not having the chance to be able to attend their neighborhood school, so they're moved to a different school. But part of the problem historically has been they're moved every 3 to 4 years, and this is from my own understanding of being on Sackett. So one of the things we're trying to build into this particular process is removing that particular historic inequity amongst our most vulnerable children. So it's one of the things, as we're changing some kind of boundary, it impacts a lot of other conditions that are of note outside DBRAC's purview, but it's one of the things that DBRAC impacts. And so we're saying also, if we're going to make this change, know what the full scope of that change is, and make sure that the district and the board has thought through what all of the implications are and put in the necessary investments and preventative measures so that those kids who are going to be impacted don't feel the impact, but the benefit of new opportunities coming to them.
is there any place in this report that you talk about what I've referred to in the past, and it's a bad term, I don't like it, but I can't think of another one, kind of the social engineering?
Mm-hmm.
If you move kids from, because if we look at our test scores, the stupid SBAC tests that we just got, basically what it does, the SBAC test, it basically outlines things according to socioeconomic. Higher socioeconomic neighborhood, better the test scores. The worse the socioeconomic neighborhood, and worse in terms of lower, the lower the test scores. So if we take a chunk of this school and we move it to this school, and we take a chunk of that school and move it back, and it equalizes, let's say it equalizes the test scores. You move enough so it equalizes, everybody gets now's in the middle. Are we talking about anything, did you talk about that in the DBRAC meetings? Because for a lot of people, that's the, you know, the nasty letter I got in the email 2 days ago about Lincoln, we're gonna take Lincoln and we're, you know, you're not touching Lincoln. Did you discuss that and talk about that? Because that in the long run, that's one of the main factors that concerns the community. It wasn't up here. But I'll bet you I could write it up so that it would get 95% of the concern, one way or the other. I mean, it's a big concern. Did you guys discuss that in the DBRAC at all? Is that in this report at all? That's kind of, you can see where I'm getting confused about.
No.
Because what you're doing is dealing with the kind of major actions that the school district can take, not necessarily the kid, which is fine one way or the other. I don't know. I haven't thought about it enough to know, but is it in here at all?
So I don't have the report in front of me, so I don't recall offhand if it's in fact in there, but I know for a fact that that was a number of discussions that we had over the course of the year. So I will say, I'm going to respond to your comments to me in a point, so I apologize for the back and forth. So first and foremost is I was asked to oversee a district-wide process, and I'm committed to doing that. So to the extent that we can do a process that balances enrollment within the ranges that staff are going to hopefully talk to you about doing, I'm committed to focusing that. So for me, in order to do that, every option as far as I'm concerned is on the table. I said it last week during past interviews, and I will say it again, and I will continue to say that. Two, I think your comment in terms of the issue around social engineering, I think research has historically suggested that if you can change the composition or the demographics of a school, it potentially changes the scope of the resources. But historically what has happened is that's been outside of the fact of what has happened is you've got enrollment in some schools where they're overcrowded, but they don't have sufficient FTE to generate. What the numbers will show you later this evening from staff is what those numbers will show you is how those numbers are a serious first corrective action so that it ensures that schools have the actual resources that match with the FTE that you need to deliver. One of the things that staff presented to you at your last board meeting a couple of weeks ago was an overview on the FTE allocation in the 4 different buckets. One of the things that DREC has known historically and anecdotally is that schools have dipped into all 4 of those buckets in order to offer the baseline level of service. What these numbers arguably will demonstrate is how those 4 buckets will actually do what they are intended to do. So to your other point in terms of the social engineering of the demographics of school, I would be very cautious of that because
I would be too.
A couple of things. One is boundary change is one of 6 different levers. 2, another component of that is if you're wanting to social engineer a school personally as a community member, I think if you're trying to do that so that a school can better perform, and that's a word I'm at times nervous about, you're still not doing your fundamental responsibility about holding all schools accountable for serving our children. What we're saying historically and now going forward is every kid, regardless of where you draw a boundary, regardless of what part of Portland they live in, they should have access to be successful and the potential to thrive. And that's what the numbers and the intent of where we're going in the future. Arguably, yes, you can change the demographics through diversity and income. That's great in theory, but again, you're talking about kids who need stability the most, need a chance to be stable and a chance to succeed. With the demographics in those buildings, one of the things you need to start thinking about also is how are you going to ensure that you're delivering the services that they need? To your point, we're about offering the base. That's great. I think one thing that you want to consider down the road is the base that we have now a sufficient base for the 21st century in terms of programs? That's an additional conversation you can have in the future. What I would also contend is we have a number of opportunities to build on our programs. That's not DBRAC's charge. What we can do is get you the enrollment numbers to stabilize program offerings, but we can't dictate what program is going to be offered in every single building. We can't tell you how teachers are going to respond to kids in the building. We can't tell you how principals are going to oversee staff. Those are other factors that we have to take into consideration, but we don't have oversight.
Great, thank you very much for that answer. I think I'll call her quits with one last question, Tom, which is we're going to get maps.
Yes. Yes, as part of the scenario process that'll be next month.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tom.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Thank you, Jason.
It's an important issue, that's why I asked a number of questions.
All right, continue on.
Okay, so
Yeah.
now I'm going to turn it over to our Senior Director for System Planning and Performance, Sarah Singer.
Great, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to provide you some technical analysis, and specifically what I've been asked to do is discuss with you what we would call sort of the building blocks that will eventually make up our scenario. So this is inputs into scenarios. So, and there's really kind of a 3-part analysis here that my staff has completed or is in the process of completing. The first is around preferred enrollment ranges. So this gets at literally how many students per grade level or does a school need to generate the full core program FTE. And specifically, we have said offer that core program without having to dip into the equity allocation, which I'm going to get into in greater detail in a moment. We also are going to present today or tonight updated classroom counts. So once you know what kind of your preferred enrollment ranges are for your various school configuration, the next question is, well, do our facilities hold the number of classrooms necessary to, have those preferred enrollment ranges? So we're gonna talk about that tonight. And then this third piece of analysis is in process. We're not going to present that to you tonight. But what that says is there's also these sort of district-wide programs. Early learners, pre-K, dual language immersion, some of our multiple pathways to graduation programs, those are the ones that come to mind. That is not included in what we're talking about tonight, but it will be in very short order. And so again, I just want to reiterate what you're about to see. I'm sorry, G. Hit the person with broken elbows. Sorry. That was awkward. Okay, so technical analysis. You are seeing technical analysis, and so all you're seeing is preferred enrollment for schools and capacity of their buildings. That's it. So and this is really important, what we're going to show you is not a reflection of the quality of any school in the district. So there's a lot of schools here that may not fall within our preferred enrollment ranges. There's going to be schools that don't have facilities that fit what we think that in terms of size that they would need to house preferred enrollment ranges. But school staff, principals, the school communities, teachers, they have used their creativity to make many situations work, despite maybe not having the best conditions.
So Sarah,
yeah,
the preferred enrollment is based on the capacity of the building and the sort of what we know about the catchment area?
Preferred enrollment is based on, I'm going to go into a lot of detail on this,
go
like
ahead.
a lot.
Yeah.
So how about you hold off and I'll get there. Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do is start off with the punchline. So we've done some analysis, we have some findings. I'm going to start off with the findings, and then I'm going to tell you all the assumptions and the methodology we use to get to those findings. So the first finding was when we looked at K-8s, we found that those K-8s that support 3 sections per grade, so you're looking at a school that's around 700 to 800 kids, are preferred. And we believe they're preferred because they're right-sized to deliver the core program to all students without using the equity allocation or non-formula subsidies. So when I talk about the core program, because this was just brought up in a question previously, I'm talking about the core program that right now we require schools to offer. It's kind of a base minimum core program, okay? So maybe we want to be more aspirational with our current core program. I'm talking about the current state core program. And also, we believe that K-8s that support 3 sections are preferred because they mitigate risks associated with enrollment fluctuations that routinely occur at individual grade levels. So what that really means is you have this enrollment range that's preferred. If you are 3 sections per grade, you're less likely to sort of pop out of that preferred enrollment range. And we know schools are kind of fluctuating all over the place in between grades, and that's sort of a normal and routine thing for schools. We also know that K-8s that support 2 sections per grade can work. So it's not as though they cannot work, but there's a higher risk that they can't sort of absorb those fairly normal and routine enrollment fluctuations that occur across grade levels, across years. And so what happens to those schools when they pop out of a preferred enrollment range is they need to figure out, how am I going to support the core program? And the way they support the core program is they tap into what I would call other funding sources. That might be the equity allocation, it might be a grant funding, it might be whatever. There's lots of different funding sources outside of kind of the traditional FTE that we assign by size. They also might raise class sizes. or they might receive what we call, subsidies or set-aside FTE. So we're sort of, at the end of every, after we release initial staff, we kind of come back and schools come to us and say, I cannot offer the core program with the FTE that you've given me. In a lot of those cases, it's because they're outside of a preferred enrollment range. Similar to K-8s, larger K-5s, 3 to 4 sections per grade, can more sustainably absorb enrollment fluctuations across grades, but we believe 2-section K-5s can work. They can also work. Okay, so what I just talked about was preferred enrollment ranges. Now I'm going to match that with what our actual facility infrastructure is. And so we're in a conundrum. Many of our PPS facilities do not support preferred enrollment ranges. This is especially the case for 3-section K-8s and 4-section K-5s. So what I'm going to do is present a graphic here. And what this graphic shows is the percentage of buildings that could house what we have deemed our preferred enrollment ranges at various configurations. So here you'll see K-5, 2-section. So this is imagine you have a K-5, it's offering 2 sections. You'll notice first that there's a low poverty and a high poverty bar. The reason why is that because our higher poverty schools, or our schools who serve higher percentages of historically underserved students, receive more teachers because they benefit from the equity allocation. So they actually need more rooms to house those teachers. So that's why it's actually pretty important to make a distinction between those two variables.
How many low poverty schools does this represent? What do we have, 84 schools? How many are we?
Yeah, so the way we've done it, this is a binary variable. You could obviously not do it to low or high poverty, but it's Title I is the cutoff basically. So it's however many Title I schools we have. Does anyone have that off the top of their head? Well, so I can get that to you. I don't want to state an inaccurate number in front of the TV. So, okay, so and what you can see, what that means is about 80% of our K-5 our school buildings could support a K-5 2-section. And so, and that's of all our whole facility infrastructure minus high schools. So we've taken high schools out of the denominator because we're making an assumption that high schools will remain high schools. But this would include schools like some of our, like Kellogg. It includes some other schools as well as sort of our existing school buildings. So that's 80% plus of our facility infrastructure would support a K-5 2-section school. And then you look at K-5 3-section, and because you would need more classrooms for a K-5 3-section school, 3-section per grade school, because it's more students are filling that school, we're not surprised to see that there's fewer percentage of our buildings that would sustainably house those schools. And so then you can see at K-5 4-section, it's even fewer. And you go to K-8 2-sections, and it goes back up again. And you'll notice that K-5 3-section schools and K-5 2-section schools are pretty equivalent, actually. They're roughly about the same. And then you get to our K-8 3-section school. So this is a conundrum for us because we just said that our preferred enrollment range for K-8s is in the 3-section kind of ballpark, but we don't have a lot of facilities that necessarily support that. And then that's our middle schools. So we don't have a ton of middle schools, but remember, you don't need as many middle schools. So usually you would have, maybe 3, or you could have up to 2 or 3 or 4 of these feeding a middle school. Okay.
Are those only, is that how many buildings would do the middle schools, or how many middle schools? I mean, is that, so we have 18% of the buildings that could do a high poverty middle school? Of the total buildings?
Of our total buildings, yeah.
Regardless of what they have now? Correct.
Yep, that's exactly how to interpret that, minus the high schools, so take the high schools out of it.
What percentage of your, in other words, what percentage of the middle schools, do we have enough to do 7 middle schools? How many middle schools could we do without, that's a certain number, right?
Right, and so we know we have a certain amount existing already.
We haven't really done it by numbers.
But we haven't, yeah, so that we're gonna get there. I mean, not necessarily tonight, but that's where we're headed. Okay, so those are the punchlines. So now I'm going to go into way more detail about all the assumptions and the methodology used to get to those conclusions. And so the first, remember we had a 3-part analysis. So the first question that I'm going to address here is, how did we get at those preferred enrollment ranges? So here is our methodology. For a specified enrollment size, the first thing we wanted to do was determine how much teaching FTE would be generated given the current staffing ratios. So remember, this is the FTE that are teaching students, and the other big assumption here is current staffing ratios. From there, so we have the amount of FTE for that specified enrollment size. Then we compare the number of teaching FTE that was allocated to that school to the number that's actually needed in order to offer the core program at the most optimal class sizes possible. So I'll get to what an optimal class size is in just a minute. Then we essentially did those steps, but we did them for all enrollment sizes within various configurations. We did K-8s, we did K-5s. We did not, Director Beal, do 6, 7s or anything like that yet. It's theoretically possible to do that. And then we determined which enrollment ranges are most sustainable. So that's the 4-step process. So the critical assumptions regarding the preferred enrollment range was the following. So within that preferred enrollment range, the following occurs. The currently defined core program can be offered to every student. The core program can be offered at class sizes at 30 students or less. The core program is offered in a way that allows teachers adequate planning time as defined by meeting all contractual obligations within our teacher's contract. Okay, another critical assumption, this is a really important one, is in this analysis, equity remains central by assuming that all schools offer the core program without using the equity allocation or focused or priority school, not in formula resources. So I'm going to talk about what that means. So this is the way our existing staffing formula works up here. So this is total general fund FTE that's allocated per building, and it gets assigned based on these sort of 4 buckets. Okay. So one is FTE assigned by size. So if you have more students, you're going to get more FTE because you need them, right? You also have your equity allocation. So not all schools are eligible for an equity allocation, but many of our schools are. So that's another fairly sizable FTE allocation in this district. We also have something called school-wide support. So these typically are non-teaching positions. These would be like administrators, like secretaries, counselors, etc. And then we have what we call non-formula FTE. And non-formula FTE is things like the set-aside FTE or those subsidy FTE that we allocate to schools. It's also, we allocate a set of FTE to focus in priority schools specifically. So that's where that is. It's also a pretty sizable amount. What we are saying in this analysis is that, and this is a philosophical underpinning, it's a big deal, is that schools should be able to offer the core program with the FTE assigned by their size, not the other buckets. The equity allocation, for example, is not meant in how we built this model. It is not meant to provide the core program. So when we talk about how can we use the equity lens, or how do we keep equity at the forefront, this is a way that you can operationalize it for geeky analytical folks, right? So this is a significant deal here.
So yeah, I'm confused about that. So what do you mean it's a way to operationalize equity?
So, because currently, in the current state, what is happening, and this is what Jason Trombley was alluding to, is that schools dip outside of their preferred enrollment ranges. And then they got to figure out, I got to sustain the core program. So they use this funding source or this funding source.
Wait,
to,
this meaning the equity allocation?
Yeah, they use the equity allocation to sustain the core, which then means they're not hiring a reading specialist, which then means they're not able to do a restorative justice coordinator, which then means, and so those things that you need sort of for above and beyond to really get equitable outcomes, you can't do because you're just trying to fund the core.
So this is a way to preserve the intended use of the equity allocation.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's a departure from how I think it's actually operating in the current state.
And that's a great point. So thanks.
Do we have a Do we have a report on how it's actually operating in the current state?
We don't have, we have some analysis, yes. I don't know if I'd call it a report,
Could
but
you
yes.
send that to me, please?
Yes.
Thank you, appreciate
I'm sorry, Ms. Singer. I am a little confused. Do you have the ability to pop back to slide 33?
Sure.
But I am very grateful that you brought that part up. Under preferred enrollment ranges, okay, you do have without using equity. And then under non-formula allocations, does that include positions that might be funded by foundation money? Because very much like you were describing with equity, which I have heard many, many times anecdotally, I have also heard the same claim made about foundation money.
Right, so that, are you saying that, just to make sure I'm understanding, are you saying that the claim is that foundation money is funding the core?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this
Exactly.
model also has the same philosophy that should not occur. So
Yes.
that's
Yes.
school foundation money, yes.
So-
That should not occur, and that's how this model is built.
And that is exactly that's what's covered by that. I
Correct.
just wanted to be
Yep,
very
that is
explicit
exactly
on
what
that.
is
Thank you
covered by
very
that.
much.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Okay, let's see, where were we? Okay, so I was talking about equity allocation. Yes, so the but this analysis does not show class size impact from other, this is another assumption, from other funding sources, special ed, ESL, foundation, Title I, or other grants. So I think I mentioned 30, a class size of 30 or fewer previously. Just remember that in actuality, the class size would probably be a little bit lower than 30 because in actuality, there is some of this going on in schools. Okay, so I'm gonna walk through an example of how the model works. So the question is a K-8 school at 500 students sustainable? So that's the question this model is gonna try to address. So the first thing we do, according to the methodology, is we determine how much teaching FTE, given our current staffing ratio, a K-8 school with 500 students would generate. And so the answer is 22.25 teaching FTE. So that's what would happen in the current state. This notes, this does not include, again, FTE that the school might receive from the equity allocation, grants, title, or foundation. And middle school and K-5 schools of the same size have different staffing ratios. And so they would, as a result, receive actually less teaching FTE. So just know that our K-8's staffing ratio is slightly more favorable. So then you have, from there, we have to compare that amount to what we actually need to offer the core program. So now I'm gonna walk through how we did that. So at K-8 school of 500, and I'm just gonna focus on grades K through 5 for a moment, this is what this school looks like in terms of enrollment. So you have 62 kids in kindergarten, 55 in first grade, and so on. And then the school community, the principal, figures out how many sections per grade that they can offer given that enrollment. So for kindergarten, I mean, you could have one section of 62 kids, but that's crazy, you wouldn't do that. You would have two sections of 31 students, but we wouldn't do that because we have a practice, a long-standing practice of keeping kindergarten class sizes at 25 or fewer. So this school is gonna offer 3 sections. And then we would anticipate, and we have run this by principals, that this is about how many sections they would offer given their enrollment in grades 1 through 5. And so then we look at, okay, you have a resulting class size. And then this is an assumption here, but kind of, you need a teacher to cover a section, right? So you have, these are the amount of teachers that you would need to cover these sections. So right here, all of these core subject teachers you need, if you add all those up, that's 13 teachers that you would need. And then, but here's the thing, our core program talks about core enrichment. So you have your art and your music and your PE and that kind of thing. And we also need teacher planning time. And so for every FTE that you every teacher that you have, it's not as if they're not going to be in front of kids all day long, so you need to sort of take that into account. They're going to be planning and doing other important things. So what we estimated is that for every teacher at the K-5 level, about 0.1 of them of their time is off planning and not in front of kids. And if you have 13 of teachers and you multiply those two and you get 1.3 FTE. That FTE, meanwhile, is covering all the core enrichments. And so, then we did the same thing for grades 6, 7, and 8. And the big difference with 6, 7, and 8 is you actually, per teacher, it's a little different. They get, the planning time works out to be a little different. So it actually ends up being for every FTE, it's about 0.2 of their time is planning. And so when you add all the FTE needed, you end up with 21.5 FTE needed in this situation. And again, that's adding up the core, these boxes for core enrichments and the core subject teachers.
So is the 6, 7, 8 3/5 of what does, in the 6, 7, 8 and a K8, 3/5 of what 6, 7, 8 would be normally? Or do you push forward the case 5, or do you pull to determine the FTE from what you're normally, because you said that the middle schools have a different allocation.
Yeah, planning time.
And the K5 has a different allocation.
Yes.
So to do the 6, 8 and a K8, do you use the middle school allocation or the K5 allocation?
So in the middle grades for a K8, we're assuming the middle grades allocation.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so, anyway, so we talked about them needing 21.5 FTE, and they were given, according to our funding, 22.25. So you just subtract those, and they have enough FTE to sort of make it work. They have a little bit extra that they could deploy for whatever they think would be needed. So this, according to our model, would say that this school is sustainable. But we're going to do another example. So what if we took 5 students per grade level at this school? We took them away, so that now the total enrollment wasn't 500 students, but it was 455. And just this is a theoretical model. Typically, you wouldn't have 5 students per grade level neatly taken away like that. But this is just an example. So what would happen? So I'm going to repeat the same thing, and what you're going to find is they still need the same amount of FTE to make it work. Now their class sizes are going to be a little lower, but they need the same amount of FTE. But guess what? Our ratio, because they're smaller, doesn't give them the same amount of FTE. And so in this scenario, they can't make it work. And so they can't make it work, of course, and given the allocation that we give them. And so what they are in this position of having to do is they need to offer the core program. That's sort of a district requirement. It's a high value for us. So what they do is they either receive subsidy FTE from us through the kind of set aside process. They dip into their equity allocation. Perhaps they're using some sort of grant funding or foundation funding to fill in the gap. And then the other schools, there are some schools that use really creative scheduling strategies, like blending of grades. So they'll end up doing those kind of things in order to make it work. So our analysis would show that this is not a sustainable model, this size. So we basically did that on a computer-generated model, and we just did it for every enrollment size across all the different configurations, and so that's how we got to the preferred enrollment ranges that are able to offer the core program. Okay, so that was that part, and so these were the findings repeated that I already went over, which was basically that K-8s that support 3 sections per grade level were preferred. K-8s with 2 sections can make it work, but there's higher risk, and so on. So middle schools are interesting. So for middle schools, we relied on the educational specification of 675 students. Most of our middle schools, that's actually a feasible number for them to make. They can make the core program in that amount. we would assume that middle schools would have 2 to 4 feeder K-5 program schools, that would enable us to offer the core program. So that's how we handled middle schools. So a little bit different. Okay, so this, so I'm gonna match up which buildings have enough classroom spaces for the preferred enrollment ranges, how we got at that analysis, or how we got at that. So what we essentially did was we looked at kind of the supply of classrooms that are contained in each school facility, subtracted the demand, so the number of classrooms needed, and then you have a shortage of surplus. In terms of your demand, how we determine that, and I'll go into more detail, but we looked at, again, the number of teaching staff allocated by our current staffing ratio, the number of teachers generated by the equity allocation, because they are gonna need teachers. I mean, they're gonna need classrooms, so we're assuming that they need classrooms. And the number of estimated teachers needed for special education and ESL. And then for supply, we considered, and we worked with our facilities department, who provided us the input data here on what the classroom is. And so their analysis considered a classroom, if the classroom was over 500 square feet, and it was clearly billed as a classroom. And there's gonna be certain situations where you're gonna find in the current state that perhaps a school's not currently using that space as a classroom, and or they're using a space we wouldn't consider as a classroom according to this model as a classroom. So that's kind of a caveat. So here's some assumptions around classroom count. So we're assuming every teacher needs a full classroom. We are assuming so that would include an art and a music teacher needing a full classroom, but we're assuming that the PE teacher is going to use the gym, not a classroom. We allocate special education learning centers and ESL classrooms were allocated based on the school configuration and poverty level. So specifically, we know that like for special education, K-8s actually need more special education teachers, for example. Positions such as counselors, school psychologists, instructional specialists are assumed to be housed in offices and not classrooms in this model. And so this would be roughly like the type of methodology we use for this model. Say you have a school building A, we're gonna make this school building A a K-5, let's say. It's not gonna have a high percentage of poverty, and this is all theoretical. So therefore, remember that's important because that dictates in part how much staff you receive. This building has 24 classrooms. They have an enrollment of 350. There's 2 sections per grade. Estimated rooms needed would be 16 because of what our staffing ratio would dictate. You subtract, you go 24 minus 16. So how many classrooms are in the building minus how many you need. So this school is okay by 8 classrooms. So that's sort of roughly how this model works. But you take the same building and you say, I'm gonna make it a K-8 and it's located in an area that's gonna have a higher degree of poverty. So they're gonna benefit more from the equity allocation. But they still have the same number of classrooms in the building. Their enrollment's a little higher, 2 sections per grade, but they're gonna need 28 classrooms now because they have, again, more students and they also have more teachers coming through that equity allocation. So in this scenario, 24 minus 28 is minus 4. This school can't be a K-8 according to the model. And so that's roughly how we got to this finding right here. Okay, so in your packet you had you had this chart that had a list of schools. That's the one, and I'm just going to walk you through how to read this report because it's not probably the easiest to understand report. So. I picked on Glencoe for no apparent reason, I just did. So you have Glencoe here, and so you can find, for those who are following around and have a chart, you can find Glencoe if you search by, they're in the middle of the page, and if you look at the classrooms column, this column right here, you can find a group of schools that have 27 classrooms, and that will help you find Glencoe. So the first thing this report does, I'm just going to walk you through what the rows and columns mean, is you have the facility name, so Glencoe, you have their current configuration, so Glencoe is a K-5, and you have the number of classrooms in this facility, 27, according, again, to the kind of technical analysis that facilities did. And those are kind of real data points. The rest of the data points I'm going to give you are all sort of theoretical or possible variables. So this right here, I would just point out that you have the possible or the theoretical configuration. So theoretically, what we're going to look at is Glencoe. Could it be a K-5, could it be a K-8, or could it be a middle school? And then you're going to look at, okay, if it is a K-5, is it going to be a 2-section K-5, a 3-section K-5, or a 4-section K-5? If it's a K-8, you have a 2 or a 3-section option here, and if it's a middle school, we're using our educational specification. And then you have the preferred enrollment ranges for that given configuration. So for a 2-section K-5, 330 to 360. For a 3-section, it'd be 500 to 550, and so forth. And then we have a binary variable here of high or low level of poverty. And so you have, and high poverty in this analysis is really about if you're hitting Title I stuff. So we can actually, and we got feedback, I think, from DBRAC when we presented this to maybe break that out to more than just 2 variables. So you would have maybe low, medium, and high, for example. But this model right now has low and high. So those are kind of the key headers. And so if we were to look at, according to this analysis, does Glencoe's facility support a 2-section K-5 configuration? Here's how you would look at that. You would say, okay, Glencoe has 27 classrooms right there. Now you go to the K-5 section of the report, and you can see that a K-5 2-section school requires between 16 and 19 classrooms right here. And it depends on the poverty level of the school, but regardless of even what its poverty level is, because it has 27 classrooms, Glencoe would, in fact, according to our analysis, be fine holding a 2-section K-5. So that's how you can read this report for all of the schools.
And the yellow versus the green?
Thank you. Good point. So the green means you can make it work. The yellow means you can barely make it work. So it means between 1 and 2 classrooms. And the reason why that's important is when we look at our district-wide program. So what we haven't overlaid here is pre-K or some of our district-wide, like Head Start type programs. So if you're trying to figure out, well, where do we locate those? If you're in a yellow, that means it's going to be pretty tight. You don't have a lot of extra space there. So that's why that's important. Oh, the gray box. Okay, I forgot that. So there is also a gray box on your report. Do you guys see that gray box? So that is the current grade configuration and the average number of sections in the current state for that school. So if you're
What is that gray box again?
it's the current grade configuration for that school and the number of sections it currently houses. So you're going to see situations where that gray box aligns really neatly with our green dot, and you're going to see situations where it does not. And where it does not, our analysis would suggest that schools are figuring out another way to make it work.
And I'm just going to finish by saying this is the website that will be updated once a week, starting next week, with all of our updated FAQs, all of the documents we talked about tonight, and will be regularly communicated and sent out to the community for updates. And has this report.
And that was a terrific report, and you've done incredible work. So thank you all.
Yes.
Very much appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. Do we have any other questions or comments among the board?
I have
Mr. Anthony.
one comment. Ms. Singer, as you had previously shown to DBRAC, I want to again say how much I appreciate you showing how relatively small changes, small fluctuations in enrollment can make a school unsustainable, can make our whole model go higgledy-piggledy. And given that, I do really have a concern that we may be overpromising, particularly to our parents, that with what are relatively blunt instruments, boundary redraws, transfer changes, that may not give us the precision that parents are going to be expecting, as we saw again tonight, as the board members have been hearing many times on a daily basis for the last 3 weeks. Small changes in enrollments make huge differences in the experience of what children see in the day. My comment.
Yep, absolutely.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. We're now going to do the Oregon School Board Association nominee vote. At this time, excuse me, folks, are we all paying attention here?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was nothing in my packet.
There was an update packet. We should have gotten 2 packets, right? We got one last week and one yesterday.
So this is, the board is asked to nominate to the Oregon School Board Association Board of Directors and Legislative Policy Committee. Director Anthony has stated his interest in serving on the OSBA Board of Directors. Thank you, Director Anthony. Director Constan would like to serve on the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, so we thank her. All OSBA voting is done by a voice vote of the board. All those in favor of nominating Director Anthony for the Board of Directors, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed? And with the student representative
Yes.
voting yes, thank you. All those in favor of nominating Director Constam to serve on the OSBA Legislative Policy Committee, please say yes.
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 Yes. Opposed? With student rep?
Yes.
Okay, nominations will be forwarded to the Oregon School Board Association. So again, thank you for doing that. The board will now consider its business agenda. Ms. Houston, are there any changes to the business agenda?
Yes, there is one on page 4 of the business agenda. That's Resolution 5145. The contract with Ellis Ray Leary Jr. has been pulled.
Okay. Are there, do I have a motion and second to adopt the business agenda?
I make a motion to adopt the business agenda.
Second.
Director Rosen moves and Director Anthony seconds. Ms. Houston, are there any public comment?
No.
Okay. All those, will now vote on the business agenda. All in
I have
favor?
a question, I'm sorry, Chairman Curler. Could someone comment on the other half of that contract, the Immigrant and Refugee Community Organization? Could someone comment, I'm sorry I didn't ask earlier, but I don't understand it, so I wanted to know. Is that contract amount, is that a pass-through, or is that something we're paying? What is that? Lorenzo's got his name on it. Apologize for not getting to you earlier on it.
Lorenzo
Snuck by
Poe,
me.
yeah, thank you.
Lorenzo Polk, Chief Equity Officer and Partnership Director. The contract with ERCO is one of our family engagement contractors to provide culturally appropriate family engagement services to the refugee community. And in that, ERCO provides support to families, interventions with families, and ability for families to engage with the district and support them, and also providing wraparound services and supports to families in Portland Public Schools.
Does any of that have to do with language?
Yes.
I mean, do we have evening classes in language as we're supporting there, or anything like that, that would be related, say, to the newcomer stuff that we do?
ERCO as a organization provides a whole host and range of services that those who are involved in our contract are able to avail themselves to. They make that available to parents who are part of the service.
Do we do like language, English language classes out of this money, do you know?
I can't give you the
How about
specifics
somebody
on
kick
all the
me
language
that
classes.
information if you would?
I can get that to you.
Okay, that's, just specifically about the English language
Yeah, I
class.
can get that to you.
Kinda like more, a little more on there. I apologize for not asking earlier, I missed that.
Okay.
Okay.
I can get that to you.
Thank you. All in favor, vote indicate by saying yes.
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 All opposed indicate by saying no. Are there any abstentions? The Student rep?
Yes.
Yes, so the business agenda passes with a vote of 6-0 with student representative voting yes. The next meeting of the board will be held Monday, October 5th, and this meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.